this is Anugrah Rao. Welcome to the 60th episode of Microsoft Art of Code, brought to you by Millionlights. Millionlights is a TV channel dedicated to improving skills of people and their employability. Now, let me tell you more about Microsoft Art of Code. Microsoft Art of Code is a series of lectures, courses, and talks by experts who are going to discuss the latest Microsoft technologies, topics related to programming, and industry forecasts that are all focused on employability. This course is basically for people pursuing computer science. This content has been created by our partner Microsoft. And today we have Christopher Harrison and Suzanne with us who will be discussing everything you need to know about creating website with Python, Flask and SQL. Create, configure and connect to SQL databases. Learn to structure your code. Check out advanced UI options. Find out what Jinja templates can do for you. And get started with Bootstrap. Get the skills you need to publish a professional website and level up your Python and Flask knowledge. Now, let's move towards the course. In the previous episode, we covered how to add row to a table, layouts in Jinja, in which we'll learn why and how to use layout, advanced layout, and sort demo on Jinja templates in action. In this episode, we will learn about Bootstrap, in which we will learn designing pages for multiple types of devices, issues with Bootstrap, and a look at core classes and the grid system. So let's get started.
And so the question then becomes, what do you do with 1,000 lemurs? I mean,
I've never, it's a good question. I've just never been able to figure that out.
You know?
Oh, wait, I think, hi, we're back.
We're on, all right. So, so we left off taking a look at how to lay everything out, and I guess I should introduce who we are. That's Casey McCall, I'm Dan Rydell. No, that's Susan Ibeck, I'm Christopher Harrison, and this is SQL Python Flask. We left off taking a look at doing templating and layouts in Jinja, and we mentioned the fact that our website is, well, quite frankly, I believe the technical term is ugly. So now what we want to do is we want to see how to put some level of prettiness around it, and that's where Bootstrap comes into play, which begs the question right away, what's Bootstrap? Well, Bootstrap is the most popular HTML, CSS, and JavaScript framework for developing responsive mobile-first projects on the web, and doesn't that clear everything up?
That is quite a mouthful.
It is. So what is Bootstrap? So
it's a good thing.
It is a good thing. So what Bootstrap is designed to help us with is the fact that, first of all, CSS, or cascading style sheets, which is typically what you're going to use to help design and lay out your page, can be very tricky. On top of that, browser support can be a challenge. That back when I first started doing web development, I had two whole browsers to worry about: Netscape and Internet Explorer. Well, now we've got Internet Explorer, and we've got Firefox, and we've got Chrome, and we've got Safari, and we've got Opera, and we've probably got about a half a dozen other ones that I'm leaving off. And that's not to mention the fact that you're going to have different versions of Safari depending on the type of device, and you're going to have different versions of Internet Explorer depending on the type of device, and different screen sizes, and trying to develop for all of that becomes a very big challenge. And then last but not least, trying to do basic things with CSS, like doing page layout without tables, is also a big challenge. And this is where Bootstrap comes into play. That Bootstrap offers a whole bunch of great things that you can see right here. I just want to mention here real quickly the responsive part. That responsive will automatically resize based on your screen size, which is really cool. But honestly, I think the biggest thing that Bootstrap offers is community support. That there's a great community that's built around Bootstrap, and you're going to notice that if you start using Bootstrap inside of your site, that you're going to have some really neat components that you're going to be able to add in. So I did mention before that responsive, what does that mean? Well, it means the fact that if you move from one device to the next, to the next, to the next, that regardless of how it's looking, regardless of the size of it, it's still going to look good. It scales well, so that way you can basically just set it and forget it. So
it'll look good on a phone, it'll look good on a tablet, it'll look good on a big monitor.
Exactly, just like this, that you'll notice that I've got my browser window, I've got my phone, and the page is going to render properly in both of those environments. All right, now, I'm going to do a demo. I'm sorry, Barry. I'm just going to go right to a demo here. I'm going to do this. I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to say Add, and I'm going to say New Project, and I'm going to go with a Flask web project, and I'm just going to leave this with the name of Flask web project 1.
So just a blank Flask web project you're creating.
Here's the thing: is that it's not going to be blank.
Okay.
That up until now, we've chosen the blank template type, which has been perfect for what we've been doing, because we've been trying to go in and kind of teach everything from scratch. Well, the problem with doing things from scratch, it's great for teaching, but the problem with doing everything from scratch is you wind up having to recreate everything. And I know that somebody who's listening to me right now is thinking, well, wait a minute, Christopher, I don't like going with templates because I feel like I'm having to do a lot more work just to make that template respond the way that I want it to.
You have to keep tweaking it.
Yeah, and honestly, I felt that same way as well for years. And then a couple of things happened. Number one is the templates started getting better and better and better. And number two, at least for me, and you know, I'm just going to talk about me here, I lost some of my ego. And I stopped thinking I can do it better, because a lot of times I can't. So let me use the baked-in template. And so I really recommend whenever you're creating a web application that you go in and use the built-in template. And so here's my little application, and I just created this, you just saw it, and I'm just going to go ahead and launch this here. And what I want you to notice is that this is now using Bootstrap. That screen that you're seeing there, the layout and all of that is being done by Bootstrap. Now I'm going to get in.
So all the colors and the font choices and things like that.
Exactly, yeah. So I'm going to get in and I'm going to take a look at how we can start tweaking some of this and start using this inside of our application. But the big thing that I wanted to show right away is, hey, look, there's Bootstrap baked right in to the project template. So if you don't like the colors, can you change them?
I don't like the colors. Can I change them?
Absolutely. So there's that default page. We want to make it, well, maybe not look like that, but we want to change the colors. Well, fortunately, like I mentioned before, there is a great community around Bootstrap.
Awesome. It's great when the coding community gives back by providing, and people who have a passion for design start designing templates, and then someone like me who's got no talent at all in graphic design can take advantage of what they're passionate about and learn from them.
Absolutely. And so what you're going to notice here is this is bootswatch.com, and you're going to notice if you go grab the decks that all of these are linked on the last slide. So it's bootswatch.com. I'm going to put Susan in charge of typing this in to the into the Q&A window, but here is bootswatch.com. And so here's all that you have to do, is you just have to kind of flow through all of this. You just have to find one that you like. I'm going to go with Superhero, just, for Superhero. And I'm just going to download this one little min.cs file. I'm just going to copy that, and I'm going to save this. Save as. And I'm going to put this into my little directory here, Flask. And you're going to notice there's my Flask web project. There's static. There is my content. There's my Bootstrap min. I'm just going to save and replace. And I'm going to do the exact same thing with the CSS file. Now, for those of you that are not familiar, CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets, and it's a language that you can use to choose your colors, your fonts, your layouts, and things like that. The minified version takes away all of the white space that's inside of that file. Now, what I just did is I just replaced these two files right here. And these are the two files that were being used for the Bootstrap CSS. That was what, again, was defining all the colors and everything out. So I just swapped those out.
So those, when you said file, new Flask project, it created those files and you just replaced them.
And I just replaced them, exactly. And so now, if I come back over to my website and I hit refresh, just like that, it's a brand new color scheme. And that's what's great about Bootstrap, is the fact that there's this wonderful community. So if you want to swap something out and start using, a different color scheme, it really is just that simple. Just replace the CSS file that was provided with something else, and away you go from there. That's probably not the best theme in the world, but it gets the point across there that it was very easy for me to go in and swap that out. Now, I saved that directly through the file system. Could you have dragged and dropped that into Visual Studio? Absolutely, but I was just let's just replace the files, because I also wanted to prove a point that my server was still running. I didn't recompile. I just simply hit refresh. Bob's your uncle. Cool. Bob's your uncle. Fan is your aunt. All right.
My Uncle Simon, but okay.
Yeah, whatever. All right, so let's keep on keeping on. So now what we want to do is we want to incorporate Bootstrap into our own pages, and we want to understand how things work. And Barry, I'm just going to kill you over there. I'm going right back to another demo.
That's fine, I'm watching.
All right, good. So here's what I want to highlight is, and I was sort of mentioning this before, is, hey, rather than going off and creating your own, follow convention. So you're going to notice that they being the people that put together the Python tools, you know the name of that person, right?
The person who made the Python tools?
Yeah.
I can't remember his name.
Oh, okay.
I know the guy who does the marketing for it.
Oh, okay.
But yeah,
All right.
I don't know the one who made the tools.
In any event, I'm just going to put you on the spot there. Don't mind me.
What? Huh?
Yeah.
What? Am I listening? Go.
Yeah. Okay. So what I want you to notice here is that they created a package to put all of that inside of, just like we did. You're going to notice they created views, just like we did. So again, that's the convention, and you want to follow along with convention. There is this static folder, and the static folder is designed for static content. And you're going to notice that inside of there is those couple of Bootstrap files there. And if we take a look at this index page, and that's going to be the starting page, what I want you to notice is right here that we've got this thing called Jumbotron. We've got this thing called row. And then we've got this thing called call MD4, call MD4, call MD4. And I will always remember when I went in and I created my first project in Visual Studio when they decided to incorporate Bootstrap built right in. And I looked at that and I had no idea what in the world this was trying to do. I had no clue.
Not exactly intuitive. It's not like, oh, look, a connect.
Yeah, I mean,
a color.
Yeah, some of this I can kind of figure out. I mean, BTN button.
Probably button,
BTN default. Okay, well, it's obviously going to modify something on a button. So at the very least, that I can kind of figure out. But like this column D4, what in the world does all of that mean? And that was the part that confused me the most. And so this is where we want to start digging into the grid system inside of inside of Bootstrap rather. So here's the way that the grid system works in Bootstrap. Do not lay out your pages using tables. And the reason that you don't want to lay out your pages using tables, number one, is because for accessibility. Screen readers have a hard time with tables.
Yep.
Number two, depending on how complex your table is, you can actually slow down the performance of your page. And that's also bad. Now, the reason that developers like myself used tables, and I have to say, for me personally, I probably gave up tables only about 4 years ago.
Yeah, it's certainly how I started as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the problem is that the reason that developers use tables is because they're easy, and we know what we're going to get. And with CSS, especially in days of yore, it oftentimes felt like you were just tricking the browser into doing what you wanted it to do. And so because of that challenge, because of that difficulty, and because of the fact that I have a life, I didn't want to always mess around with CSS. The other nice advantage to laying things out with a table is that it's easy to think in those terms, because what do tables have? They have rows and they have columns. Well, what does Bootstrap have? It has rows and it has columns. The only difference is that it's just now called a grid system, and it's being laid out by utilizing CSS, and that's the way that we want it. Now, here's what we need to identify, is we need to identify basically how wide we want each content, and so that's what those numbers at the end mean. Those numbers at the end mean I want you to take up 1 column, or 8 columns, or 4 columns, or 6 columns. That's what that's going to mean at the end. And then you're also going to notice that we've got here a row for each one of those. So the number on the end is for the number of columns that we want. The 3 little letters at the beginning, col. Now that you know there's a grid system, we got rows and columns, what do you think col stands for?
Col might just stand for column.
There you go. So that only begs one last question, which is what does the MD stand for? And we're going to get to that in just a moment here. But before we get there, we want to talk about the grid itself. And on the grid itself, you always have 12 columns, period. And so you'll notice if you come back here and you do a little math, and I forgot to warn you there's going to be math today. I know. If you take a look, you're going to notice they always add up to 12. And this is probably one of the biggest mistakes that people wind up making, again, myself included, is they see this. Do I still have my website open? I do. Fantastic. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change that first column to 5. And so let's do a little bit of real quick math here. You're going to notice all of that is inside of a row here. So all of this is now one row, right? And each row has how many columns?
12.
12. So 5 plus 4 plus 4
is not 12.
Is not 12. There you go. So if we come back to our little web page, I did close it. Dang it. There we go. There we go. So if I come back over here, what you're going to notice is sort of an odd bit of behavior. That over here, you're going to notice that there's my Get Libraries in Microsoft Azure, and then there is my Getting Started over there.
Yep.
And the reason that it's set up that way is because we told Bootstrap we want you to use 13 columns. Bootstrap is built for 12, so it's sort of going, all right, well, I don't know what you want me to do here, so I'm going to do the best thing that I know possible, which is to take whatever wouldn't fit on the same row and move it to the next one, which is just fine because after all, it doesn't know what else to do, but it's certainly not really what we wanted to do. So
a graphic designer is going to get upset about that.
Yeah, exactly. So you want to just keep in mind that it's always 12 columns. So as long as you can add to 12, yes, you can take off your shoes if you want to. I have to. I'm actually wearing flip-flops here. We're not going to pan down and show that. But in any event, where was I? Toes, shoes.
12,
yes,
count 12. to 12. As long as you can count to 12.
As long as you can count to 12, you can lay out your pages. But the other problem that we have is this, is when we're talking about laying pages out, and we're talking about all the different device sizes, we need to keep smaller devices in mind that, when I've got my phone here, I don't have a whole lot of room to work. So when I've got my full desktop, these awesome little planar somethings, I've got a lot of space here. So if I wanted to lay something out and use up, just a little bit of space, I could do that. And that's going to represent a fair amount of space and be potentially pretty big text. But when we get down to a very small device, and this would be a phone down here at the very bottom, and I decide I'm only going to take up 2 columns.
That's pretty small.
That's
on a
very
phone.
Small.
That's only
yeah.
one. It's like 1/6 of your phone screen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, as opposed to 1/6 of your monitor screen.
Look at you with the advanced math.
I know.
1/6. Well done. Yeah, exactly. So I'm really going to have to. I'm waiting for Barry to kick back to here so you can see me staring at my phone. So I'm really going to have to get in there and stare at that. And so I don't want to have to. So what's nice is that Bootstrap gives you essentially 4 grids, and that's really how I like to think about it. Is I get 1 grid that's going to be unique for extra small. I get 1 grid for small, I get 1 grid for medium, and I get 1 grid for large. And so I can target each one of those. So if I know that I need a bit more space for my phones, then I can say, all right, well, for a phone, I want you to take up 4 columns. And if I don't need that much for a large, then I can say, all right, well, I only need you to take up 2. So I can target the individual devices as needed. So you get complete control over how all of that comes together. Now, if you remember, we saw col MD4. We decided that col is for
column.
And we decided that 4 was
How many columns we want to use up?
What do you think MD is?
Still can't figure that one out.
Still can't figure that one out. Well, if we get back to my slide here, you're going to notice there's my abbreviations. So MD for medium, LG for large, SM for small, and extra small is XS. So what you can then do is say, all right, well, for a medium device, I want you to take up this much space. For an extra small device, I want you to take up this much space.
Cool.
Now, let's step to the side here. Let's do a little FAQ. Is there always 12 columns? Yes. Why 12? Well, because the goal really is to try and make it easy to lay it out without overwhelming you. So 12 is sort of a nice, happy medium.
4, 4, 4, 6, 6, kind of. But it
exactly,
divides up really in a lot of different ways, you know?
Yeah, that's it. And if you do the math, I'm doing the, yes, you're right here. If you do the math, 12 is kind of a nice number because you can lay things out very easily in halves and in thirds and in quarters, which is typically the way that you're going to want to be able to lay things out. So it's a very nice number. It's not a magic number. 3 is a magic number, but 12 is a perfect number for laying everything out inside of your page. Now, the last question, and I always get asked this, which is, can you change the number of columns?
Christopher, can you change the number of columns?
Yeah.
Should I change the number of columns?
No.
Okay.
No. This really goes back to, again, somebody else went through and did all the work here. Can you change the number of columns? You can, but just don't.
Your life will be easier.
Exactly. Your life is going to be easier. Now, here's the last little challenge that we need to highlight is how much space are we going to take up on the page? That if I go back to my my app here, and again, forgive my I really should have chosen a better theme, but forgive my little theme here. What you're going to notice is over here on the outside is that we've got a gutter here. And that is always going to be, in this case, beige space. I don't really want to call it white space because it's not. So if I go in and I bring this back out, what you're going to notice is that the middle there is always going to stay the same width. And so the gutter space on the outside is what's going to shrink down. Because right now we're on extra large. And then what's going to happen here, we're just kind of keep sliding down, is now you're going to notice...
Did we just switch to large?
Large, medium. That was what I wanted. Yeah, we're on large. Now we're down to medium. And so now you're going to notice there's the outside space, and we're going to keep shrinking that down, but the middle part doesn't change size. And then if I keep shrinking down, now we get to small, which is automatically going to go to 1 column. I'll talk about why in just a second. And if I keep shrinking the rest of the way down, now we're down to extra small, and again, 1 column. Now, there we go. Here's the thing. When you start to lay out your pages, knowing how wide they are is key. And that's where a container will come into play, that with a container, I'm going to have, well, a container. So if I don't want it to take up the entire screen, then I can say, well, just put my data into a container. And so there's sort of my graphical representation. Or to go one step further, there's my grid. And the container will always stay the same size for a particular screen size. And if you really want to get into it, there's all of your sizes. This chart is just provided for your own learning purposes later. That if you really need to get into the nitty gritty and you want to figure out, okay, well, how big is something going to be?
Yeah, we're already getting a question to UA of what about the extra large screen sizes of so many pixels and things like that.
Yep.
So this is for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is for you. And I would say that if you're trying to get into, beyond that 1200, Bootstrap out of the box doesn't support something like that. So one of the things that you might decide to do is maybe just go containerless at that point. Maybe a future version of Bootstrap will support extra large, but for right now, those are it. But I would mention because I always get asked this, why is it 768? Why is it 992? And again, these were not numbers just drawn out of a hat. These really are numbers based on research, based on common device sizes. Okay, So with all of that in mind, let's actually get in and take a look at how we can use those grids, those containers, and how we can start to use Bootstrap inside of our application. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do, is you can actually go download Bootstrap by going to getbootstrap.com. I've sort of got oh, I don't want to use those files. That's right. Okay, you know what? I am going to do it this way. All right, so let's say get Bootstrap. I am going to go grab it. All right, chugga. There we go. And I want download Bootstrap. And download Bootstrap. And let's go in and save. And, oh, come on. Open. And there we go. And I want my CSS and I want my JavaScript. And let me just throw that out onto my desktop here because that's where you throw everything that you just don't know where else to put. Okay, right?
That works, yep.
Yeah. Okay. So now let me go back to my little project over here. And I'm going to add on a brand new folder here that I'm going to call static. And I'm going to add on that little CSS folder. There we go. And so you'll notice that there is my Bootstrap min. They also give you theme files as well if you wanted to just customize the theme and not modify the built-in Bootstrap files. I really don't care about those for right now. The only ones that I care about are just that Bootstrap min. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my layout page. Come here, Mr. Layout. And inside of that head section, I'm now going to drag out that Bootstrap min file.
You got the wrong view open there.
Thank you. I noticed that just as I started dragging. There we go. Come here. Okay.
I love the way you can do that drag and drop and it adds the link.
Yeah, I do have to get rid of the ... because I don't want it to go up one level and then back down to static. So that's it. So all I did was I just dragged and dropped out a CSS file. Now, I need to mention this. We're not going to get into JavaScript today. And some of the cooler features inside of Bootstrap require JavaScript. And so you'd have to drag and drop out a JavaScript file and go get jQuery. And so what I'm going to say, there's an MVA for that John Galloway and I actually did a full day on Bootstrap. So I know I'm moving pretty quick here, but that's by design because it really is, I'm just trying to do a high-level overview.
Help you understand what it can do for you. So if you decide that's where you want to go, you can say, now I get what Bootstrap's all about. Now I'm ready to dig into it. Then there's an MVA for that.
Exactly, yeah, then there's an MVA for that. So then you can get it and start digging into it. And I would mention that the MVA that Galloway and I built, it really was based around, it'll come to me in a second, it really was based around HTML. So we do a little bit of MVC in there, but the bulk of it is HTML. So 94.623% of what we'll talk about in there is going to be directly applicable to you. Okay, now, there is my little Bootstrap, and so now I'm just going to say div, and I'm going to say class equals container. And you'll notice that Visual Studio is going to give me IntelliSense there. So now I can set up a container, and then I could put that block inside of a container, because after all, that's going to be our main section, so let's put that into a container. And I can also set up a header section. Let's go in and say div class equals Jumbotron. There we go. And beautiful. And so there is our cool little Jumbotron class. So I made kind of 4 changes. That I grabbed the CSS file, I dragged that onto the page, I set up my Jumbotron, and I set up my div class container. So for right now, that's all that I've done. Let me now go in, launch my page. There we go. Go to create. And so now you're going to notice that I've got the Jumbotron up at the top, and then down below that I've got my little page right there. And you'll also notice that the font has changed as well. And if you wanted to go in and utilize the theme that they provide, let's actually just do that real quick. Come here. Take it. I hate when I do
Keep
that.
switching files on you just in
Yeah,
time. Yep.
just to catch me off guard. Okay, there we go. Haha. I want you there.
Alt up arrow.
Oh yeah, there's that. Okay, so let's go back in. Oops, and save that. Boom, save. And now let's come back over here and hit refresh, and that should, okay, it's going to keep it the way it is. That's fine. So here's what I want you to notice is the fact that I've got my Jumbotron right there, and you'll also notice that now all of that's inside of a container. How can we tell it's inside of a container? Well, if I go in and I resize this.
You said things that are in a container will stay the same size until you switch from like large to medium or.
Yeah, so watch the left side of my screen, and Susan is exactly right there. So watch the left side of my screen, and you'll notice that the left side is now what's getting smaller and smaller and smaller there. And then eventually you'll notice we changed screen size, so now we got a new container, and now we got a brand new gutter.
Now it's switched from large to medium.
Exactly, yep. And then we could keep on going, and now it's going to be small and extra small.
Cool.
Yep. So now let's go back to our create question here. And this is going to be the one that I'm going to gussy up a little bit here. And so you'll notice that, we have our create a brand new question, and then we've got that little form there. Let's put those two side by side, which, ironically enough, can be a little more challenging than it probably should be inside of CSS. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say div, and I'm going to say class equals row, because again, we're going to have things in rows. And then I'm going to say div, and I'm going to say class equals, and then you'll notice that I've got col, and then I have all my larges, my mediums, my smalls, and my extra smalls. Now, the way that Bootstrap will apply this is sort of in reverse inheritance. So the smallest unit will get applied to the next one larger, the next one larger, the next one larger, unless you define something. So in other words, if I said col XS 6, then that's going to always be 6 columns regardless of the screen size. But if I then went in and I said col MD 4, then if for the extra small and the small, it's going to be 6. And then for the medium and the large, it's going to be?
The 4.
Exactly. Yep. Now I'm just going to set it universally, so I'm just going to use XS. So we'll just go in and do that, and let's go ahead and move our little header. And then maybe we also go in and provide maybe a little bit of additional context. So div, create questions that are fun and people would enjoy. There we go. And so now there's that one, and then I'm going to real quick just div, and I'm just going to put the form on the other side. So we'll just say class equals, and call XS. It dawns on me that it's not inside of my row. I see that. I will fix that, I promise. There we go.
You bet. If you don't, you might not get the cookie.
I think my cookie days are long gone. All right. So let's just go ahead and cut that and paste. Beautiful. Okay. So now.
And I noticed it adds up to 12.
It does add up to 12. See? So now let's hit refresh. I may have to relaunch. Nope, perfect. And so now, just like that, you're going to notice that I put everything side by side. So real easy for me to go in and start laying things out just like that. And that's
tables.
Exactly, no tables. That's the part that I really, really love. And we could also kind of go one step further here. That I could say boot swatch and say, you know what, I really don't like that CSS theme. Well, not a problem. Let's just go grab one that we like, and I'm going to go with Cerulean, something that I think is a little cleaner. And I need that CSS, and let's just save it into downloads, and let's do the exact same thing with the CSS file, and let's just save that. There we go, and let's go to my downloads folder, and oh, that's funny. I had one from a prior demo.
I was going to say, either you were testing things earlier or you did another demo. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that might have actually been from the Bootstrap that Galloway and I did. Okay. You sound like there was a question that was coming in on the Q&A window.
No, we're doing fine on the Q&A window. We had
Perfect.
Just a couple of questions and everything's good.
Cool. So let me just drag and drop those on over. And let's just go in and say yes to replace both of those. And on my layout, I don't need that Bootstrap theme anymore. So I'm just going to get rid of that. So let's just save, and let's come back over here and hit refresh. And now you're going to notice that it's using that layout that we just set up there. So very easy for me to go in and
if you decide you want to change a theme, done in that was less than a minute.
Yeah, done. Just that cool. Awesome. So that is, in a nutshell, there the grid system. But one of the things that you're going to notice about Bootstrap is it can be a little bit complicated because there's literally hundreds of classes. And because of the fact that it's based on CSS, it can get a little bit quirky.
Okay.
Quirky is going to be the word that we're going to use. It can be a little bit quirky when you're trying to lay things out, that you need to use the right classes.
A little fiddly.
Yeah, fiddly. That you need to use the right classes, you need to use them in the right order. So fortunately, two tools to the rescue. Number one, Visual Studio IntelliSense.
Oh, love Visual Studio IntelliSense.
Baked right in. But number two is this cool little thing called Visual Studio Bootstrap Snippets. And again, if you take a look at the slide deck, I've got the link to it. If you fire up Bing, just search for Visual Studio Bootstrap Snippets. It's an add-in for Visual Studio. One big catch. You need to close and reopen Visual Studio for it to work. I've already got it installed. So let's take a look at this in action. So what you're going to notice is if I come back over here to my layout page and I right click and I say insert snippet, there's Bootstrap. And then these are all of the different things that I can now do. So you'll notice that they've got kind of some basic ones like JavaScript. They've got some more complex ones like navigation. If you want to go in and set up your nav bar. In fact, here, let's just go in and do that. And then poof, there's everything that we would want for navigation. So all of that's baked right in. I'm not going to go through and start changing all of that, but that's the power of the Bootstrap snippets, is that they give you those defaults that you can then use to start laying out and putting together your pages. So let's just again Bootstrap, and then you'll even notice that if you're looking for a starter for an entire page, where's the one that I want? I've got Pager. Basic template. So just double click on that, and then there's a full HTML, just basic template on how to get in and get started on your pages. So kind of very cool tool that's available to us. All right. Well, where are we going to use that? I'm glad you asked. We're going to use that with Bootstrap Forms, because I think Forms is probably the most common place where the Bootstrap gets a little bit, and again, I don't want to say it's hard, but yeah, it just gets a little fiddly.
A lot of little things you have to keep track of, right?
And because of the fact that it's CSS, and this is the part that I always love about CSS, you know what happens when you get something in CSS wrong? You're giving me the exact right answer right now. She's giving me the right answer. You know what she's doing? She's doing nothing. And that's exactly what happens, is nothing happens. And that's a real pain to troubleshoot. It's hard to troubleshoot something when it doesn't at least throw an error. So, if you forget a class, it just doesn't do what you want it to do. And that can be a real pain. And that's where the
error messages, as much as we hate them, actually help.
They do. Just tell me what's wrong. I'll fix it, So this is where Bootstrap Forms come into play. So some of the Bootstrap form capabilities are provided by HTML5. So for example, email, we'll get to that in a minute. You'll also notice the fact that it's easy to customize, but I do want to highlight the Bootstrap defaults here. That number one is it will automatically focus highlighting if you have JavaScript, which I'm not going to, but it automatically will, which would put the cursor right at the first spot and kind of highlight a couple of things and so forth. We'll get some of the behavior, but not all of it. But the other very big thing is this vertical display, which means that it's going to say name, which is spelled like that, and then it's going to put the text box underneath it.
Oh,
which is
yes.
Never what you want. What you always want, or I always want anyway, if you're anything like me, and I know I am, twice in one day, you're going to notice that we really want it to the left.
That's what people expect.
Exactly. And so we can do that. We just need to add a couple of classes. And again, I don't want to have to memorize all of these. So I'm not going to. So let's go back to that question submission form and let's bootstrapify it. I'm just going to make up the language as I go. So I'm going to give myself a little bit of clean space here, and I'm just going to right click and I'm going to say insert snippet, and I'm going to say bootstrap, and then I'm going to scroll on down, and here is my form horizontal. So that's going to set me up for a horizontal form. And I'm going to hit enter, and it will set up that basic structure for me. So all that I have to do is just go in and start making some small little changes. So I'm going to, it just automatically creates a login for me, which I don't want. So I'm just going to kind of clean this up just a little bit. And so there's my form group. You'll notice that we can identify the column sizes. We can specify our little label. And so this is going to be for our title. And we'll give this an ID of title. And enter title. And let's make this as text. There we go. And then let's go in and let's just use the Bootstrap snippet again. Insert snippet. Bootstrap. And I want my form group. There we go. And so the name was question. The label. Oh, you know, I should really hold on. I'm going to take a step back here. Watch this. Okay. So before, what I did is I went in and I took what it gave me and I cleaned it up a little bit, which is you know. But watch this. Is I'm going to right click and I'm going to say insert snippet.
Okay.
And I'm going to say bootstrap. Okay, and then I'm going to say I want a form group horizontal because I want horizontal. Enter. So it automatically highlights the for section inside of our label. And the name that we wanted was question. So I'm just going to type out question, and then I'm going to hit tab. And it will automatically update my ID down below.
Oh, look at that.
And then I'm going to type out my label, and I'm going to say question.
So it automatically takes you to the things that you're logically going to be changing and updates all the references of them.
Exactly. And so I'm going to say question, and I can put in a colon as well if I want to, and I'm just going to hit tab, and now it's going to be question, and then it's going to ask me the type, and I'm going to say text, and then once I'm done, just simply hit escape. And that's it. So very cool little setup there. And all of that is because of Bootstrap. Let's see. So I've got my title. I've got my question. I also need an answer. So let's just do that again real quick. KX, by the way, is the shortcut to bring that up.
KX brings up the snippets.
Exactly. Yep. And this was answer, answer, and the type is text. Okay. There we go. So I've got the title. Check. I've got the question check. I've got the answer check. And there is a button that's already there for me. You notice that right there. There's our little button, and we'll just leave that with a text of submit. And I'm just going to make sure that my method is post.
Right.
Cool. So now let's save this. And do I still have my app up? I believe I do. Hit refresh. And sure enough, doesn't that look so much better now?
Wow, that doesn't look like something I would have built.
Exactly. It frankly, boy, I'm just, here you go, Susan, I'm just going to throw you right on the bus there.
Absolutely. I am not, this is one of those great things where when I'm doing something like web development, I don't have that talent for making beautiful graphic design. So to be able to do something like this, the combination of the snippets plus the themes allows me to make a very professional looking page, even though it's not a skill I have in that world of graphic design.
Exactly. Neither do I. And that was it. And that took, you know, I mean, I've been talking now, carry the one, for about 40 minutes now. And in that 40 minutes, I've probably only done about 10 minutes worth of actual real demo on our site. And it's now looking a lot better, or at the very least, we're well on our way to making this look a lot better.
At this point, it's just a question of what colors do you want and, you know, fiddling around a bit with exactly where you want fields. But you're very,
Exactly. Yeah, I'm really, I'm well on the way to doing whatever it is that I want. And so now I could go in and say football and what team plays in Cleveland, and that would be the Browns.
Cleveland rocks.
Cleveland does rock. And then let's go in and hit submit. And
something on your submit button, maybe?
Form class post button. button type equals submit. I want, see, the problem was I went in and I deleted something, and I probably just needed something there a second ago.
Yeah, you've been moving a lot of code around.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. This was a real dangerous kind of demo here. So form method equals post on create question, button type equals submit, and there's that new one, and type equals submit, and I mean, if it doesn't save back, it's not a big deal. I can go back and fix that.
Yeah, you've been focusing.
Later.
You've been focusing on the layout here.
Yeah.
So yeah, just when you're copying and overwriting a bunch of code, some line somewhere got overwritten.
Exactly. Yep. And I'm not saying, but that's okay. I honestly, I truly, I mean, I'll go back and I'll fix it because I care enough for it to work, but I don't care about it really for this demo, and that's going to be just fine. So the point really that we're trying to make here, and it is really funny that it's giving me method equals post. Yeah. I'm taking one last.
Yep, absolutely.
Oh, you know what? Let me do this. Let me close that. Let me close my app and let me just relaunch it. It probably just wants a relaunch. Is that what you want? You just need a hug. Do you want a hug? Okay. Football.
When in doubt, turn it off and turn it on again.
Yep. Thank you for calling the help desk. The Browns. Submit. It's telling me it can't find it, which is sort of funny here. In any event, that's okay. It should have. Bad request was unable to connect to the server because of a problem with the address. Weird. Huh. It's just
Said there's got to be a line of code you overwrote and all that kind of
Yeah, and that's it. I was moving kind of quick, and I admit that because I'm really just trying to show the basics of all of that.
Yeah, you've been focusing on the layout.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm just taking one last look at it just to see if it's
so hard to leave it behind, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's it. It's like I want this to all come together because it's so cool to have all this Bootstrap and to make all of that just look so much better inside of your page. And this is just going to be my day, but that's all right. So again, the real takeaway here is just simply the fact that, hey, look, when it comes to the UI, Bootstrap gives us a great way to go in and start playing with things. And if you're really looking to get more into Bootstrap, you'll notice that I listed off 3 different resources there. If you head back to MVA, you can see Galloway and I do a full day on Bootstrap. All right, that's a lot.
It sure is.
What did we learn? Well, we learned Jinja
amazing,
layouts and relational databases and Bootstrap and object-oriented design. But, the other thing is this,
And actually, take a step back. If you joined us in the first course, you went from what is a variable to starting to use Bootstrap and relational databases and Redis key value pairs. You've come a very, very long way if you were with us in that first course in terms of starting to code. You're now at the point where you're looking at all the pieces of the puzzle that allow you to build a complete professional application.
Yep. And that's exactly it. So now that we've gone through this really 4 days worth of training here, if you watch the first 2 courses, the question is then, where do we go? So really, it all comes down to a matter of, hey, what interests you? Because we really, and today was a perfect example of this, is we saw 3 things today. That we saw how to work in databases, we saw how to work on the back end, and we saw how to work on the front end. So that's really it. So if you want to start digging deeper into database design, you're going to notice we've got a few MVAs that are well worth checking out for Redis, for SQL Server, for MongoDB. You'll notice there's a lot of different data products. So
absolutely,
if that's what excites you, go check those out. If you're more interested in the front-end design, go check out Bootstrap. There's the URL there. You can go check out CSS as well if you want to dig deeper into CSS. And then last but not least, if you want to get more into back-end design,
the architecture, that whole structure, because that's actually one of my passions. I love, and it sounds geeky, but I absolutely love well-architected code. Yeah. Making sure that I am efficient, that if something does have to change, I only have to change it in one place, and that someone else will be able to understand my code. And if someone else has to maintain it later after I've written it, I take great pride in well-architected code. So that's one of my passions, is that space there.
Excellent, cool.
But we didn't get into that we didn't get to any of these topics to the 300, 400
right.
level.
And one thing to mention here is that, for right now, this is sort of the end of our Python that we've got on MVA, and maybe that will change in the future. So, if you've been through Python and this was your first programming language, maybe it's time to branch out. So you'll notice that I've actually got a couple of links here to C# and to MVC that you can go ahead and check out as well.
Yeah, just explore some other languages and apply your skills in a different programming language.
And that's exactly it. All right.
You've learned a lot, and there's a lot of different directions you can go now. Because the really key thing here is hopefully we've exposed you to the pieces of the puzzle for not just from writing code back in the Introduction to Python course, right up to what are the pieces of puzzle that put together a full application that's maintainable, that looks polished. So in terms of the what's next, really at this point is going to depend on your passion, where you want to dig in further.
Yep. So I'm just going, what's going to happen? We're going to turn off the camera and it's just going to be right there.
You're going to,
In any event. Okay. With that, we do want to thank everybody for tuning in today. If you had half as much fun watching this as we did recording it, then we had twice as much fun as you did. That is, there we go with math again. That is Susan Ivack. Susan, thank you again for joining.
It's been a pleasure, Christopher.
Thank you, everyone. Of fun. You'll notice that you can follow us both on Twitter. I'm still Christopher Harrison. And then last but not least, please, before you take off, you're going to notice a little poll that will be right about like there that you can go ahead and fill out. So just take that. It'll take you all of 2 seconds. And once again, thanks. We hope to see you guys again in the next MVA.
That's all in this last episode of this course. I hope this tutorial was helpful. In the next episode, we will be covering some more interesting courses on coding, developing, and programming, etc. Is your mind ringing with questions, queries, or doubts? Do you wish to learn more? Then visit our website www.millionlights.org and post your questions on our forum. We will be really happy to clear all your doubts. If you missed anything and want to rewatch it, you can download it from our website or can watch online as well. You can also participate in our webinars, discussions with the subject experts, as well as get Microsoft certification on various courses through our website. You can also find us on Facebook by the name Millionlights and also on Twitter. For more such interesting tutorials on coding, app development, programming, and building rich UIs, keep watching Microsoft Art of Code, brought to you by Millionlights. Thank you.